Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's, is a well-known scriptural verse that appears in Matthew 22:21. It's part of Jesus' response when asked if it were right to pay taxes to the Roman emperor. Many peoples who have experienced just a sniff of the Christian Bible, the New Testament, know this verse and use it on different, at times decidedly inappropriate occasions. And if one delves a little deeper than merely reading or quoting such verses, it becomes evident that the question was a joint attempt by the Herodians and the Pharisees to make Jesus stumble in front of his own people. This verse crossed my mind last week when I heard that the judicial authorities in Armenia had issued indictments against Catholicos Karakin II, the overall leader of the Armenian Orthodox Church in Armenia, plus 6 of his bishops. 2 of the indicted bishops, by the way, happened to be good friends who were primates serving the Armenian Church in the UK and Ireland. I shall not bore you in this short YouTube episode with the details of the criminal charges leveled against these clerics. Suffice it to say quite simplistically that the church leader defrocked a disobedient bishop in his church, then refused to heed to the state by pulling back, and the political secular authorities used this incident as a pretext to object vocally and then also judicially. The reason I quoted this verse and not another is because it also defines the balance between civic duties and religious loyalty. The Church is not entitled to delve into strict secular politics, as that is the duty of elected officials of any half-decent state. Conversely, ecclesiastical issues, including who's ordained and who's defrocked, fall within the remit of the Church. But hold on. This whole saga that has been rumbling on for long months is not merely about bishops. It's much more about politics. A majority of the Armenian church hierarchy today are not consonant with Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's swerve toward the West at the expense of the historical ties that Armenia had and still has for geostrategic and economic reasons with the Russian Federation. It is also about the fact that the Church, and most but not all of its clerics, have taken a strident stance against the marginalization of the Nagorno-Karabakh Armenians, whose lives were uprooted after the Armenian defeat in the war against Azerbaijan in late 2020, when most of the 100,000 men, women, and children fled the enclave and ended up as refugees in Armenia. I'd argue that the Church crossed a line when it supported Bishop Bakrat Galstanyan's public attempts during 2024 to unseat Pashinyan. His movement, most commonly known in Armenia as Tavush for the homeland, in Armenian, Davush Hanun Hayreniki, was wrong and meddlesome, and it was Soviet-like in its haughty presumptions. But two wrongs do not make one right. The Armenian Prime Minister, who's wooing the USA and the EU, whilst pretending that he's maintaining equal and equable relations with Russia too, where incidentally the largest Armenian diaspora community live and work today, took offense and turned against the Catholicos and his acolytes. The legal charade that unfurled last week in a court in Vahar Shapat, the seat of the Holy See of Echmiadzin in Armenia, was wrong canonically, constitutionally, and legally. But forget all that. It is also wrong humanly, in that Armenian is turning against Armenian in an ugly, at times scatological manner. I'm not here to defend the church or its hierarchy, nor am I here to pass a wholesale condemnation of what the government, via its parliament or the judiciary, do in running the republic. But Armenia is not living in feudal times. It is 2026 after all, and the church must not dictate raw politics. Nor can the Prime Minister and his ministerial cronies, for that matter, behave like tin pot dictators whose actions today suggest they believe that it must be their way or else the highway. Armenians everywhere, from Armenia to the four corners of the world, all 10 million of them, regardless of their allegiances or faith, deserve far better. In a nutshell, the church anywhere in the world, be that in Armenia, the United States, France, Lebanon, or Timbuktu, have a prophetic duty to raise their voices when it comes to faith issues or humanitarian and human rights issues. But it is up to the state to rule and apply the laws. This is what should happen in countries that respect the rule of law rather than the 14th century idiom that might makes right. So instead of such indecorous, let alone debilitating squabbles that hurt every Armenian, I would suggest that the protagonists put their proverbial short swords back in their sheaths and sit together for a proper powwow, a goodwill conversation, if you will, that lead to conciliation. The church should practice charity, and the executive should remember that it came to power in 2018 to remove corruption and not to create new autarchs. The bond of peace is far better than vengeful reprisals. After all, the government has a mountain of problems, including recent receding economic indicators. So is it not frankly puerile for the Prime Minister to behave like a despot? Or else, Armenians will resemble Azerbaijan, where one man and his wife run a country, and woe betide to anyone who has a different opinion. I have no clue how this conflict might end. I suppose there'll be many more twists and turns in the days, weeks, and months ahead, and time will inform us. And as a dear person in Leeds reminded me after reading my digital bubble on this topic, wisdom is in short supply here. So let me conclude by paraphrasing St. Matthew's scriptural verse following the one I used at the start of this episode. It's a potent lesson for us all today. And when the crowd heard Jesus, they were amazed by his wisdom. So they left him and went away.